Okay, so my next steps, just moving forward, I'm going to start building these mountains. So to build my mountains, all I need is to create triangles, and we're actually going to create the triangles with some depth. So coming back to my one that I'm working on right now, I'll choose the star tool again, and the color that we're going to use for those mountains is fairly similar to those first triangles that we made on the bottom, but a little bit lighter. So the color that we'll choose for these is, I won't give you the hex number for this one either. We'll just go up a little bit lighter, somewhere in there, and hit OK. And now I'm just going to click once and hit OK, and there we go. There's my triangle. I want to rotate that around, and I want to make it bigger, so I'll choose my selection tool, increase the size of it, pulling from a corner. If you want to hold the shift key to constrain the proportion, you can. You don't have to necessarily for this. So I'll make it about the size I want, and then I'll rotate it around. I'm going to hold the shift key right now as I rotate it. That way it's, I don't have all of the options for the angles available when I rotate. Right now I'm not holding the shift key, so I can put this at whatever angle I want. When I'm holding the shift key, it would only rotate to 180, 135. I think it's every 45 degrees. So there we go. Okay, so there is my triangle. Now I want to make it look a little more three-dimensional. So I have a lighter side and a darker side, as you can see here in my first version of this. Okay, so I have my lighter side created. I'm going to make a darker side. I'm actually going to move my triangle up and out of the way so that I don't actually or unintentionally grab any of this over here that I have already done. I'm going to hit my space bar and hold it down and just slide my document over. And I'm actually going to move this out of the way for right now. Okay, to do that, I'm going to choose my rectangle tool, and then I'm going to choose a little bit darker gray. Not a huge difference from this version to the other one. So we'll just go maybe somewhere in here. Again, I won't give you the hex. If you want it, there it is right there. Oops. As you can see, I forgot to reset again. So I just undid what I did, use my selection tool, click out of here, choose my rectangle again, and I will choose that color again. So somewhere in there, it's a different one this time. There we go, all 7s, that'll work. Hit OK. So now I'm going to click and drag out a rectangle, and I want my rectangle to intersect my triangle right at the middle. So that's what we want right there. Now we're going to use the shape builder tool. So I need to select both of these shapes using my selection tool. So I can just click and drag, and there we go, I have them both selected. Make sure you don't select anything down here. So if you noticed, I'll click off of that so I can redo it. So all I did was I click and drag out here. I stop up pretty high so that I'm not accidentally getting down into these shapes down here. So all I'm going to do is get those two, and that selects those two. And now I'm going to choose my shape builder tool. I'm going to hold down the Alt key on my keyboard until I see that minus sign right next to my cursor, and I'll click right there. And that is perfect. That's just what I want. So we have not talked about this yet, so I'm going to give you the option of doing this or not, but we are going to use the pen tool to draw out these kind of snow-capped areas on our mountains. So again, it's an option. If you want your mountain to look a little bit more fully developed and interesting, then you can do this. If you don't want to, you don't have to. So again, just choosing my pen tool, I'm going to choose a fill color that's a little bit lighter. So up here, we'll go pretty close to white. So all the way up there and hit OK. Now I'm going to click following the contour of my mountain. So I'm going to click there. I'll click up here, up a little ways right at the intersecting point, and then down here and back up, and there we go. My path is completed when I see that little circle on the bottom right of my cursor. That's exactly what we want. I want to change the right half of that little snow cap that I just made to a little bit darker color. So as you can see, I made the shape a little bit different in this version as I did in my original, which is perfectly fine. So here I have that point coming down in the middle and back up and down and up. So you can do that, or you can do something like this. Either way is fine. So we're going to do the exact same thing here as what we did with the bottom half of the mountain. So I use my selection tool. I'll just click over to the side here to kind of reset everything. I'm going to choose a slightly darker color and hit OK. Now I'll draw a rectangle over to this side here, choosing my selection tool. This will be a little bit different because you want to make sure you're not selecting the bottom half of our mountain. So right now that rectangle that I just created is selected. I'm going to hold the shift key and click on that little snow cap that I made. And now I'm going to come back over to my shape builder tool, hold the alt key and click on this excess area over here. Press the selection tool once over here, and now I have that shape created. That's what I want, and actually now that I have one created, I don't need to reinvent the wheel, so I can just copy this a couple of times. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to group this together first, so object, group, and I'll go ahead and pull that down here. Now I'll hold down the alt key and I'll click and drag out a couple copies of this, and then I'll actually resize them. So there we go, there are our mountains. As you can see here, I made the two outside ones a little bit bigger and then the inside one a little bit smaller. So I'll do the same thing. And I actually will probably reorder them. So I'm going to hold the space bar and move my hand just a little bit to slide over, to pan over, that's what we call that. I'm going to click on this center mountain, and I just moved it down a little bit so that it lines up with my sort of horizon line. I'm going to resize it. So I'm holding down my shift key this time, and I'm going to drag that down. And actually, you wouldn't necessarily have to hold down the shift key. You might want to make this one a little bit skinnier than the others or something, for example, whichever way. However you choose to make them is fine. Okay, I want to reorder everything. I want my smallest mountain to look like it's in the middle, or to look like it's in the front. So I'm going to send this one to the back. So I'll click on that with my selection tool, and I will go to Object, Arrange, Send Backward. I don't want to send it all the way to the back, but I will send it backward. You might need to send it further back than that, or you can come over here to your layers and you can figure out which mountain that is. Like for example, if that needed to go farther back, I could click and drag that around in my layers palette. Mine worked out just fine like that, so I am good to go. Okay, so my next step, if we look at our original again, I've got my mountains there and sort of the bottom of my, my drawing for the most part. Next, I'm going to make these hills, and then I'll do the house. Okay, so making the hills. We could do that a few different ways. For this one, let's choose the ellipse tool, and I will change the color to a green. You can use the same green as what you used for the grassy area if you want, or you can use a different one. Either way is fine. So I'll go somewhere around there, hit OK. I'm just going to click and drag out an ellipse shape. Okay, I want mine to be flat on the bottom, so we're going to do the same thing as what we've already done. I'll actually click off of here using my selection tool, choose my rectangle tool, and I will just click and draw a rectangle down here. Using my selection tool, I'll select both of those objects and my shape builder again. So same thing we've done quite a few times now. Holding down the Alt key on your keyboard till you get that minus sign, click there and click there so that we're left with just this hilly shape. Okay, we want to do the same thing for those hills as what we did for everything else, or we did for the mountain so far. We will do for other things here too. We want to make the right side of it a little bit darker than the left. So I will choose my rectangle tool again, same way we did for everything else. I have my smart guides turned on, so I know exactly when I hit the halfway point. I see that magenta line pop up. I will click there. I want to change the color to slightly darker. So you want to keep it consistent. The right side of my mountains are darker than the left, so the right side of my hill needs to be darker than the left. So I will go ahead and do that. Using my selection tool, I will click and drag and select both of those sides of my hill. Choose my shape builder tool again and hold down the Alt key and click over here to the side and get rid of the rest of that. That's exactly what I need. I can do the same thing as what I did with my mountains. where I am going to group these. So object, group, and I'll move that into place over here. And then I'll copy it 2 times, or 3 times probably. What do I have on this original? 4 hills. So I've got 1 there. I can size it however I want. And then I'll hold down the Alt key on your keyboard, click and drag, click and drag, click and drag. And now they're all the same exact size, and I don't want them quite that consistent. So I will resize. Oops, I don't want to rotate them. So I'll resize these guys down. Maybe make the ones on the outside just a little bit bigger. And I think I rotated that around just a little bit, or I popped it up just a little. Okay. There we go. Okay, so now we have our hills created. Our next step will be to create our house.